Has there ever been a Stanley Cup final with this much notable news and trade speculation and transactions outside of the Stanley Cup final itself? We had the three-team deal between the Flyers, Blue Jackets, and Kings that sent defenseman Ivan Provorov to Columbus. Today, Damon Severson was sent to the Blue Jackets in a sign-and-trade. The Pierre-Luc Dubois speculation is heating up, and today in this video, we're going to be talking about Alex DeBrincat, who recently gave the Ottawa Senators a list of teams that he would prefer to be dealt to. Alex DeBrincat and his agent have been open about the fact that DeBrincat is not interested in signing a long-term extension in Ottawa while the whole owner situation is up in the air. The Senators are now exploring the trade market for Alex DeBrincat, and it appears as though this season, which was DeBrincat's first season with the team, is going to wind up being his only year as a member of the Senators. So in today's video, I'm going to go over a handful of teams that I feel like should be all over this, be putting in offers for Alex DeBrincat, trying to pry him out of Ottawa. And it should be noted that while yes, Alex DeBrincat and his agent did give a list of teams to Ottawa that he would prefer to be traded to, they can trade him anywhere in the league. As DeBrincat is currently an RFA, he doesn't have a no-move clause or anything like that because he doesn't have a contract right now. So let's go ahead and get started with the first team that I think should trade for Alex DeBrincat, the St. Louis Blues. Obviously, this season did not go the way the Blues would have liked. They were pretty much out of it by the trade deadline, which led to them selling off players like Ryan O'Reilly, Nola Chari, Ivan Barbashev, Vladimir Tarasenko. But despite all of those moves, I feel like the Blues have made it very clear that they aren't interested in entering a full-on rebuild, more of like a retool. It was rumored that the Blues were interested in Timo Meier before he was dealt to New Jersey. It was reported that they were in on Jacob Chychrun as well before Ottawa swooped in and landed him. One thing those two players have in common is they are in the same age group as players like Jordan Kyrou, Robert Thomas, and Pavel Buchnevich, who are currently on the St. Louis Blues, and I feel like are the three core forwards that this team is trying to build around. Somebody else in the same age group as those guys I just mentioned, Alex DeBrincat, 25 years old, the exact same age as Jordan Kyrou. DeBrincat fits the timeline. The Blues have the cap space. They have the assets as to where I think they could put together a really intriguing package for the Ottawa Senators. Don't forget the Blues have 3 first-round picks in this year's upcoming draft. Alex DeBrincat also addresses a big need that the St. Louis Blues have, and that is goal scoring, high-end finishing ability. The St. Louis Blues had the 22nd ranked power play in the league last season. They were 17th overall in terms of goals for per game. The Blues already have, in my opinion, one of the better playmaking centers in the league in Robert Thomas. The thought of him setting up DeBrincat on the power play, or even those two together playing at 5-on-5, has to be really intriguing for the Blues. So given where the St. Louis Blues are at right now, the ages of their core players, the amount of tradable assets that they have, and their cap flexibility, I would not be surprised at all to see them make a pretty big push for Alex DeBrincat. Moving on now to the second team that I think should trade for Alex DeBrincat, the Detroit Red Wings. I'm not just saying this because I'm a fan, let me explain. I feel like where a player was born or where they grew up is often overblown when it comes to, a player being available on the trade market or a player in free agency, but there is a connection there as Alex DeBrincat was born in Michigan. He grew up there, so I figured that was at least worth mentioning. The Red Wings have missed the playoffs for 7 consecutive seasons. We're now in, year 4 or 5? I think heading into year 5 of the Yzer plan. I feel like most Red Wings fans are expecting this team to start to come out of this rebuild over the next 1 or 2 seasons, not become a Stanley Cup contender immediately, of course, but be playoff contenders. Now, I guess you could kind of say they were playoff contenders this season because there was a time right before the trade deadline where the Red Wings had one of those wildcard spots, but I would say they were more playoff pretenders this season as opposed to playoff contenders. This is a team that, in my opinion, has a good core, led by Dylan Larkin, Mo Seider, Lucas Raymond, and then you have young guys like Simon Edvinsson and Marco Kasper who are expected to come in and make an impact sooner rather than later. But one thing this team is certainly lacking is star power and high-end finishing ability and just natural goal scoring ability. This past season, the Red Wings had just 3 players on the roster who scored 20-plus goals, one of which was Dylan Larkin, and the other 2 were David Perron and Dominic Kubalik, who aren't really expected to factor that much into the Red Wings' future as they are both heading into the final years of their contracts. Alex DeBrincat is exactly the kind of player that this Red Wings team needs. He's 25 years old, already has 2 40-plus goal seasons under his belt. The Red Wings have all the cap flexibility in the world. They have an abundance of draft picks. 5 picks in the first 2 rounds of this year's draft. They have 2 first-rounders next year. Now, one thing I did see somebody bring up, which I do think makes a lot of sense, is the fact that the Ottawa Senators, given where they are at right now, they want to compete for the playoffs. They're probably not just going to be interested in draft picks in return for DeBrincat. You would have to imagine the Senators would at least least want one player in a return that can come in and help and contribute right away, along with draft picks and other things. So I'm not exactly sure what a package would look like from the Red Wings to Ottawa for DeBrincat, but I do believe they can make it happen with the amount of valuable assets that they have, and I really do think that the fit makes a ton of sense. And now for the third and final team we're going to talk about in today's video that I feel like should make a push for Alex DeBrincat, the Minnesota Wild. The Minnesota Wild have a really good core. I mean, this is a good team, and they have been good for a while. They've made the playoffs in 10 of the past 11 seasons, but they've only won a combined 2 rounds during that time span. This past season, the Minnesota Wild scored the least amount of goals of any team that made the playoffs. I think they are in desperate need of an injection of life, a little bit of a shakeup, and I think DeBrincat could be the perfect guy. The Wild have a little bit over $9 million in projected cap space this offseason, but they do have RFAs in need of new contracts like Kalen Addison and Philip Gustafsson, which will probably take up at least half of that cap space. So financially, it would be a pretty difficult trade to pull off, especially considering the fact that DeBrincat's extension, wherever he signs, is probably going to be north of an $8 million AAV. But following the 2024-25 season, the buyout penalties for Zach Parise and Ryan Suter go from $7.3 million down to like $800K. So if they could just make this work for the first couple of seasons, they would be laughing after those buyout penalties are over. In terms of what the Minnesota Wild could offer up to the Ottawa Senators for Alex DeBrincat, they have all of their first round picks for the next 3 drafts. They have all of their second round picks for the next 3 drafts, including a Vegas second rounder in this upcoming draft. Now again, like I said, Ottawa would probably also be looking for, on top of draft picks, a player that can come in and help right away. From the Wild, I'm not sure who that would be. I mean, it's no secret that the Senators could use a goaltender for the future. Maybe they'd be interested in bringing back Philip Gustafsson, although after the season he just had, Minnesota probably wouldn't even be open to moving him, but hey, they do have Jesper Wallstedt, who's expected to be the goaltender of the future, so who knows? I'm just kind of spitballing here, but that is pretty much going to wrap up this video. Those are 3 teams that I think should be all over Alex DeBrincat and aggressively trying to pursue him and pry him out of Ottawa. As always, I want to know your guys' thoughts, if you agree with any of the points I made, if you disagree with any of the points I made, or if there's any other team aside from the 3 we talked about in this video that you feel like would make a great fit for DeBrincat. Let me know down below in the comments. Also, just as a heads up, I did post a video on the second channel breaking down the Damon Severson sign-in trade, so if you haven't seen that yet or you're not subscribed to the second channel, the link to that is down below at the top of the description. If you guys enjoyed today's video, please be sure to leave it a like. That's the best way to show your support, and most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you all soon.